What's up, guys? Actually, I was watching this YouTube video of how to make better content, and apparently, you're supposed to say as if you're speaking to one person, but I just feel that that is weird if I sit here and be like, hello, my friend. Um, but yeah, anyways, today's video, I would like to talk about how to train in short racing season. Yeah, the obviously racing season can be in the fall and head season for a lot of people in kind of August, September, October, November, whatever. But you know the sprint race season, I should say, is how to get that right and how to just make sure that you keep your speed. And I just see so many people, so many crews approach this in the wrong way. And they think because of the shift in training that they need to totally neglect some other areas in their rowing, or they think that it's okay to, and they need to they need to avoid other areas in their rowing and start focusing on certain specifics that are totally different from winter training. But yeah, there's an element of truth to that, but there's still some constants that you want to make sure that you keep within your training. So this is going to be along the training side of it. If you're going into like 2K season or 1K season, how to make sure that you just keep your speed and you keep progressing. And the good thing is, if you get this right, you can make sure, maybe at the start of the sprinting season you won't notice it as much, but if you get this right towards the end of racing season, you'll start to notice you're separating yourself from your competition. So yeah, the main the main energy source that we use when we row for anything longer than 45 seconds is oxygen. I did a short Instagram post about this a couple of weeks ago. So the best way to prepare for a 1K race or a 2K race, unless you can do that in less than 45 seconds, is going to be all about making yourself better at using oxygen. So, how do you get better at using oxygen? You do the stuff that helps your body become efficient at using oxygen, which is low intensity endurance training, higher volume if possible as well, and structured throughout a longer plan, all within the right training zones. So there's your answer. Make sure that you keep doing UT2 when it comes to race season. If you want to head off now, if you want a bit more detail, then stay tuned. But the kind of common error that people make. Sorry, I'm doing this at 8:30 in the morning. Normally I'm doing my deep work where I'm not speaking, but I'm going up to Aberdeen later today, so my words are coming out a bit more mush, but nonetheless, we crack on. So people think race season, time to just get rid of all of the volume and just focus on sprinting every session. Okay, let's do 8K with a bunch of bursts, or let's do some starts maybe halfway through our session. And what ends up happening is you're just not having those longer training sessions with just a constant, nice, low intensity throughout the whole session, with your heart rate just slightly elevated, staying nice and low and in the correct training zones. And what ends up happening is you just get worse at using oxygen. So the other thing as well, you keep doing high intensity all the time, you keep doing sprints, you keep doing, even if it is, like say you go out and you do 30 stroke bursts or something like that, or 10-15 stroke bursts, that's what is going to start to accumulate over time. And again, if you do high intensity properly, you cannot, it's physiologically impossible to recover faster than 48 hours. So if you're doing high intensity more frequently than every 48 hours, then you're not doing it hard enough and your quality is going to go lower. Certainly when you get to race season, you kind of, again, depending on people's physiology, it's not always the same. Like some of our athletes that we work with, for example, will do this throughout the whole year because we found that they respond best to this. But certainly at race season for a prolonged period of kind of 8 weeks is what Charlie Simpson, we had a conversation about this on the podcast, but you can have 8 weeks where you're doing up to 3 high intensity sessions per week before you start to burn out a little bit and the recovery starts to suffer. So you know that generally, again, this is somewhat case by case, but generally you kind of have an 8-week period throughout the year when maybe you're looking at peaking, and you want to save that for your most important race. So that's number one, is how frequently you're going to do the high intensity. But then around that, you want to approach your volume in the exact same way that you have been all year, where you're building it over the calendar. You're building it, what I've talked about before with long-term planning. Again, the simple way you can go about doing this is doing 4-week blocks where it's low volume, medium volume, high volume, very high volume, and then repeat. Again, we get a bit more nuanced with this and playing around with the order and figuring out what sequence of weeks works best. But if you follow that 4-week structure, it's going to be really, really effective. So make sure you keep following that throughout the year. The other area, again, this is something I picked up through reading and looking into training with triathletes and cyclists, is waiting until you do your peak volume. Now, when I was in the GB team, I really disagreed with a couple of the training approaches that our coach had. And one of them, he just, through November to December, basically, we just did 150, 175, 200K, just constant for about 8 weeks. And everybody was just fucked. And nobody was getting faster. And then we tapered from that, and we had about a week where we tapered down, as you should for a race. And no one PB'd. Literally nobody PB'd after all that training. So the reason I tell that story is to, one, make sure that you have recovery within longer training blocks. That's not just a day off, but a light week. And then the other reason I say that is because that that high volume that you use is so valuable, and you get it when you get the recovery right and you don't do too much of it. You want to save your heaviest training block for the most important time of the year. So if you're going into racing season, you want to save your heaviest training block for your most important race. So don't try and do that when you're 8 months out from your race. You want to save, you get the best adaptations after the first time that you do that heavier training block and that heavier volume. Likewise, if you also do that heavy training block right before, if you do that heavier training block far away from a competition, you're risking just overtraining as well. It's hard to recover from that. So yeah. Anyways, so okay, to get to the main point, make sure that if you take anything away from this video, make sure that you do high volume in racing season with your UT2. And again, high volume means different things for different people. Sometimes a long session is 30 minutes for some people, or sometimes a long session, a high volume session, is 90 to 120 minutes for some people. Okay, whatever that is for you, it's all relative, and you want to save that for when it counts as well. So yeah, that's something Colin, my old coach, used to talk about, is how you'd see everybody just doing, let's do 8 500s every day, and 3x2K, and 3x1K. And you just end up not getting the volume in, and then towards the end of the year, you can really start to notice your endurance. If you've ever noticed towards the end of a racing season your performance start to suffer, it's probably a sign you're just not been structuring your volume right. The other big mistake that I would say, as in my career, as I noticed this going on, I noticed the effects of racing and how it would carry over into my training. And after a race, especially if you're traveling, if you're driving across country or something like that, you want to make sure that you have recovery after your race, and you don't just go, maybe you have a bad result, you're fired up from it, you want to do some really hard training, you jump straight into some really hard training right afterwards, and you just still not recovered from that race. So often, if you race hard, especially if you're doing multiple races plus travel, it can take, a week to recover from it. So make sure that you bounce back, right, that you're kind to yourself after your race, and you make sure that you recover despite maybe being super fatigued and super motivated to go again. So yeah. The another mistake that people make in racing season, in sprint racing season, is they neglect low rate work, and they think, okay, great, it's racing season, like let's just start spinning our wheels, and you lose that concept and that ability to move the boat far every stroke. And then again, towards the end of the sprint season, you maybe notice that you don't have that power, you don't have that send, you don't have that technical rhythm, and you just feel quite tappy and quite weak when you're racing. So that's another big one. You want to in the same way you want to keep your you want to target, your weak areas in your physiology, whatever they are. You want to target those more than 4 weeks out from a race. You'd maybe want to keep some sessions with that are targeted at your weak areas when you're in race season as well. Maybe just one or two. You wouldn't want to do too many of them. You certainly, obviously, you do. The main focus will be the race pace work for your 1Ks or your 2Ks or whatever. But yeah, you want to. When you're 4 weeks, it's important to become clear on like what is the most important race for you in the year, and you really want to make sure that you prioritize that, and that you're still including 4 weeks out from that race, that you're still including low rate work, and you're still targeting your weak areas in your physiology. And let's say for example, you're 8 weeks out from your most important race of the year, and then you have another race in 4 weeks that you're maybe less cared about, but you still want to do well at it, and it's probably good to go through the motions of practicing what a race feels like and tapering a little bit. What we would do is suggest maybe including some race pace work in the 4 weeks leading up to that first race, but you wouldn't want to taper your volume. You wouldn't want to drop your volume down, and you wouldn't want to totally neglect your distance per stroke work and targeting your weak areas, because again, your throwing speed, you'll be losing sight. You'll kind of, you think about like tapering, like, and training, like the longer that you're doing a training block for, you're pulling back this kind of slingshot, and the longer that you go for, the further the thing will shoot. So if you're just kind of constantly like, right, race 2 weeks time, okay, I'm going to taper for that, right, 2 weeks time, you just keep going like that, you end up not shooting it very far. So you want to think, you're pulling it back here, and then you're like, shit, right, I've got a race coming up. No, I'm going to keep, no, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep pulling back. You need to have that focus for what races you really want to be peaking for if you want to have that long-term progression. But yeah, that's the big one as well. You can taper for multiple races throughout a sprint season, but if races are closer than 8 weeks, what am I trying to say here? If races are less than 8 weeks apart, there we go. 8:41 here, still brain like sludge. If 8 weeks, if they're less than 8 weeks away or apart, you don't want to you want to choose which one you're going to taper for. You can taper for multiple races as long as they're more than 8 weeks apart. But yeah, to summarize, make sure that you do volume in race season, in sprint season. Make sure you're still doing distance per stroke work, targeting your weak areas. Make sure that you build through the stroke rates so that you can peak into some nice race pace work, maybe 2 or 3 weeks out. And then, a lot of race pace work, maybe 4 to 1 week out, and then taper down from there. And make sure you recover after races. And you do all that stuff. Like most people don't do that. That's what I kind of picked up from one of my good coaches, Colin, that he talked about, is people just neglect that volume. We'd be doing like 3 by 30 minutes on the erg, and like June, July. Again, that's like I was shooting for the GB selection, so it's higher volume, but we would be doing long ergs even throughout into like when you're getting ready for Henley and stuff like that. And you see people going out every day. Let's do 12K in the boat with 2K warm up, and then we'll do some, we'll row for 4K UT2, and then we'll do, some bursts or some starts. And then you've only got maybe like 30 minutes in kind of an hour and a half long session where you're in that actual zone that you want to improve your ability to use oxygen. So cool. Right, I'll leave it there. Any thoughts, let me know. Yeah, and likewise, if you want to possibly discuss working with us, if you're interested in having us do this stuff for you and do this planning for you, the link below, you can just book in a chat with me and I can talk you through sort of how we work. But like I said, I'll keep posting this free stuff, and you can figure it. I'll aim to put all this information out there so that you can figure it out yourself as well. Yeah, cool. Alrighty, everybody. Like and subscribe the video. Keep up with the suggestions, and I'll keep them coming. Hope you have a good race season, everybody. Bye.